The minor league season is here, and on today's show, it's part 2 of our minor league preview, looking at the single A affiliates, some really interesting young names that you might not know about yet, what you need to know about them, and what to expect from them this season. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. By the way, we are closing in on 2,000 subscribers. Thank y'all so much. Been some huge growth in the first week of the season. Y'all are just excited for some Texas Rangers baseball. But on today's show, we are talking about the minor leagues. Before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Now, this is part 2 of my farm preview. Shockingly, I got a little more verbose than I expected on the first episode, recording this on Friday. We'll put this out here on Saturday, talking about the upper minors. If you haven't listened to that one, go check that one out. A lot of talk about Frisco because there are so many top prospects there. 6 out of the top 10 Rangers prospects are in Double-A Frisco, but we are talking about the high A. We are starting with the high A affiliate, then we're getting into the low A affiliate, and then looking at overall big picture at this farm system and some expectations and hopes for the Rangers minor leaguers this year. Now, let's start with the high A roster of top 30 guys, my own top 30 prospect rankings. This is not MLB Pipelines or anybody else's. These are my own because it's my podcast and I get to make the rules here. Now, top of this list is Kumar Rocker, the number 9 overall prospect in this system, the number 3 overall pick in the 2022 MLB draft. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does. He starts on Friday, so as you're listening to this, you have already known how Kumar Rocker did, or he got rained out. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen there. Now, the next prospect on this list is number 17, the left-handed Canadian who was thrown to the Wolves against Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. That is old Mitch Bratt at number 21. We have Emiliano Teodo. There's a lot of pitching, it's a lot of pitching. It's kind of a theme with this team. Number 26 prospect, Josh Steffen. Probably not a guy who has gotten a lot of consideration, but looking at his numbers and how well he did, and MLB Pipeline had him ranked up there, I felt like I should put him on my top 30 at number 26. The only position player, the top 30, who is on this team is outfielder Alejandro Ozuna, the 20-year-old out of Mexico, and number 30, Larson Kendrick, the number 30 prospect, another left-handed pitcher listed at 6'5". Now, this is a pretty interesting group, but there's a pretty clear theme with these 2 low A affiliates, and it's the pitching is in high A, and a lot of the hitting, almost all the hitting in single A is going to be in low A, but the pitching is really, really good in high A. Kumar Rocker is going to be incredibly interesting to see what he does. Mitch Bratt, I'm very high on him. Emiliano Teodo, I have no idea what to make of that guy. He throws in the upper 90s, hitting triple digits. He's got a curveball who is in the 90s. Yeah, a curveball in the 90s. That's probably his best pitch. He does not super know where his stuff is going. The curveball, I think he's got the best command of that. He's also got a changeup that occasionally exists. That might end up being fine. If that changeup is an average pitch, if he can kind of figure out how to throw strikes with his fastball and his curveball stays as elite as it is, that's a starting pitcher in the big leagues. If not, if he still doesn't know how to command his stuff, and he's still got that insane curveball and the insane velocity and no idea where it's going, that's maybe some kind of inconsistent reliever, but the ceiling on there is way, way up there, as is the ceiling on Kumar Rocker, a guy who is taken some strides. Quite literally, his stride has improved, gotten a little bit longer in spring training from the people who I've talked to who have been there. That is encouraging because that was one of the big concerns that Grant and I had about him in his Arizona Fall League debut. He's working on a new delivery to kind of try and put less stress on the shoulder. Remember, he had shoulder surgery after he was drafted and not signed by the Mets due to their concerns about his medical. He got that medical cleared up. He thought the issue was fine, and also worked on a different delivery to theoretically use his lower half more, even though it looked like he was using his lower half less. Now he's got a little bit longer of a stride. He is a big boy. He's a big boy, and if he is able to use that lower half and can get back to that upper 90s velocity with the slider that is really freaking nasty, maybe get a little more usage out of that curveball, then we'll see. I'm really glad the Rangers kind of learned their lesson with old Jack Leiter and didn't start Kumar Rocker in Double-A and kind of throw him to the wolves. Even though Rocker is a little bit older, he does have more professional experience than Jack Leiter did when he was heading into his minor league career, because he did pitch in the Frontier League for 20 innings and 4 starts or 5 starts, I forget what it was, and he also had that little stint in the Arizona Fall League. But still, I think that was the right call for putting Kumar Rocker in High A. If he goes out there and he absolutely shreds, he absolutely dominates every single low A hitter, and is like, wow, I'm so much better than everybody, then cool, great, no harm, no foul. There's at least one spot that can be made in the Double-A rotation for Kumar Rocker, if that needs to be the case. But I think that him starting, he's not even the opening day starter. He wasn't the opening day starter. We'll get into that. Not a top 30 guy. Maybe should have been a top 30 guy. But this pitching staff is really, really interesting. For those of you who don't know much about Mitch Bratt, other than him getting absolutely lit up in the World Baseball Classic, he is a teenage left-hander who had a really nice season last year, 5th round pick in the 2021 draft out of Georgia Premier in Statesboro, Georgia. Was born in Newmarket, Ontario in Canada, so he was pitching for Team Canada against Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. Rough go of it, but last year he had 19 games, 18 of those were starts, 80 and 2/3 innings with a 2.45 ERA at Down East. Also had 99 strikeouts in under 81 innings, just under, and 28 walks in those innings as well. Just 4 home runs. A guy who does not give up a lot of walks, does not give up a lot of home runs, and does get a lot of strikeouts as a lefty. We'll see how much more velocity he can gain on his fastball. I think that'll be something interesting to watch. I don't think there's a whole bunch more there because he's just 6'1". He's not the biggest of dudes, but he knows what he's doing. He is pretty good with his command, and that is an encouraging sign for a youngster, how you can have some success pretty early. A very encouraging season last year. Larson Kendrick is another guy who is not on the top 30, a lefty listed at 6'4", 210 pounds, who is 23 years old. He's one of those top 30 guys who I think are pretty interesting. Winston Santos, who has a really good fastball, is a 20-year-old. Last night, Thursday night, or I guess it'll be 2 nights ago as you're listening to this, through 6 shutout innings, the best start of anybody on the night in the Rangers system, at a night where Jack Leiter was going and Brock Porter was going. This guy was the best pitcher in the system. Definitely someone to keep an eye on. Last year he had a 3.49 ERA in 108 innings and 108 strikeouts. Just someone to keep your eyes peeled on, as well as Dane Acker, who's a guy who's been hurt for forever. I believe, I can't remember which trade he was in. I believe he might have been the Elvis Andrus trade, but he's a guy who's been really hurt. Not a whole lot of sample size. He's also starting the season on the 7-day IL. But when he's been healthy, when he's been pitching, he has been really freaking dominant. But still, huge question marks there. That's why I had to leave him off my top 30. And one other guy that I wanted to mention is Cody Freeman, a converted catcher, played in the Arizona Fall League. I thought that was interesting, and putting him on there kind of seemed like a sign that they think pretty highly of him. So definitely someone to keep an eye on. Coming up, we're going to get into this low A team. A lot of guys making their first full season ball, and including Brock Porter, who will be very interesting to watch in this one. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, it is secure, and it is super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained as well. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance for a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, this high A team is going to be really interesting. I did want to get to the biggest storyline of the high A team before we get into the low A team, doing interesting not in top 30 guys, as well as the top 30 guys and the biggest storyline. But I think that the biggest storyline has got to be Kumar Rocker. He is a number 3 overall pick, and I know that they paid him less money than his slot value because, they wanted to get Brock Porter, who we'll talk about in just a second. But you really have to hit on those guys. He kind of has to be an impact major leaguer with a top 3 pick. You can't afford to screw up those picks. And with Jack Leiter being kind of a question mark at this point, I think he'll be fine. I'm not going to put a whole lot of pressure on Leiter. After one poor start, the stuff is still nasty. And same with Kumar Rocker. But figuring out what he is, how long he stays in high A, hopefully the less time the better. And if he can figure out that new delivery and just stay healthy, that is a concern with that kind of curious delivery that he had in the Arizona Fall League, is that it looked like it would put a lot of pressure on his shoulders and not utilize his big old legs and big old booty, which is what you need to utilize if you're a pitcher and you want to throw some primo gas. You got to have a big booty. He does. He has got the base to throw some nasty stuff, and there's a reason why a lot of his college career he was projected to go ahead of his Vanderbilt teammate Jack Leiter, because the guy could be an absolute workhorse in the major leagues. Now, let's look at this low A roster, starting with the top 30 guys. You have another top 10 guy, top 10 pitcher. Brock Porter, my number 7 overall prospect in this Rangers system, is headlining these prospects in low A with the Down East Wood Ducks, the dudes, if you will. We also have Anthony Gutierrez at number 12 and Yeison Morrobel at number 14. Both of those guys are young outfielders. I believe both of them are teenagers at this point. Let me double check this really quickly. Yes, Anthony Gutierrez is 18 years old and Yeison Morrobel is 19 years old. Both those guys really, really ones that you are going to want to watch because they have a lot of prospect shine on them. The Rangers guys are very, very high on them. Baseball Prospectus was very high on him, especially Gutierrez. I think they put Gutierrez at number 8 in their prospect rankings. I just had him at 12 because we really haven't seen that much from either of these guys, but this could be a huge breakout year for both of them, which is kind of a theme with the position players in low A this year. They also have number 14 prospect in my system, Glider Figueroa, who is a third baseman with a lot of pop, pretty advanced power for someone his age at 18, had 9 home runs last year, probably would have led the Arizona Complex League had he stayed there for a little bit longer. Had 9 home runs, 5 triples, and 5 doubles in just 35 games, 125 at-bats, a 979 OPS. Pretty solid stuff there from him. You don't see 9 home runs in a 41-game span from a teenager very often, but that is what he did. You also have another infielder, Daniel Cueva, who is a teenager as well, at 23 on my list. And the last top 30 guy on my list is also a position player. It is Jojo Blackman at 29, the very, very fast man, who is also going to be in the outfield. That is 6 total guys. Every single level has at least 6. I didn't do that intentionally, but that's just kind of how the chips fell. Maybe some of these guys will graduate, and some of them. I don't think I have any guys in the Arizona Complex League that are there because, again, I don't really know all that much about them. I don't have any of the J2 signings from this year on there because, again, they're 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds, and I don't know a single thing about them. We haven't seen much of anything from that right now. Some interesting not top 30 guys is a pitcher, Jose Corniel, who had a really solid season last year. I'm really interested to see what he can do this year. He is turning 20. He's 19 years old, listed at 6'3", 165 pounds. Was signed out of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic last year. A bit of a mixed bag for him. A 5.45 ERA, but 71 strikeouts in 66 and a third innings. In down ice, he is repeating the level, but them sending him to that level is why I have him on here. I know the stats aren't the most impressive: 34 walks in 66 innings and 9 home runs. Again, it's not about the numbers. It's about where they are sending these guys. And if they sent him to full season ball as an 18-year-old, as a pitcher, that is something that is definitely worth keeping your eye on. We'll see. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But also Ian Muller, who is a catcher for this team. This guy who I would like to keep an eye on. He is 20. years old. Yes, 20 years old, a 4th-round pick in 2021 out of Wahlert High School in Dubuque, Iowa. Last year had a bit of a mixed bag. In 2021 was a really solid debut, just 15 games where he had 3 home runs in the Arizona Complex League and 861 OPS. Last year had a 681 OPS in 60 games, but is a legitimate catcher, and I think that really boosts his profile, and we'll see if he ends up sticking at catcher. I think he's got to for his profile, but definitely someone to keep an eye on. Not the biggest guy in the system. Cam Colley, who is kind of a scrappy infielder who I believe has played a lot of second base and a little bit of short and third base as well, if my memory served me correctly, which it just might. Yeah, 6 games at third base in 2021, or at second base, primarily shortstop. Last year, he played 48 games at shortstop, 28 games at second base. We'll see how much time he gets there this year, because I think that we're going to see a decent chunk of not Glider Figueroa, but we are going to see a decent chunk of Daniel Cueva playing shortstop. We'll see how much he sticks there. Maybe he ends up being more of a second baseman, but Cueva's definitely got a little bit more prospect shine on him. But Cam Colley, I think, should be a solid guy. If I was doing a top 50, I think he'd probably be on there. But the story of this low A level is going to be about Brock Porter and about these teenagers. Coming up, we're going to look at some expectations for them and some expectations for the farm in general. But first, this episode is brought to you by Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I've played in a long time, and I've always thought that I'd be a great Major League GM, because clearly I know quite a bit about the Myers and about baseball, but it turns out it's really not that easy. If you've had the same thought and fantasize about managing your own franchise, just go download this game, Pro Baseball GM, immediately. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of the franchise, playing through seasons and leading your franchise and your fans to glory as you build a historic dynasty. In the simulation, you're responsible for hiring the right coaches and staff, manage team finances, scouting, and drafting players so you can fill out your own system, just like Chris Young and the Rangers have done, manage through difficult personalities and injuries, and navigate your franchise through free agency and all the ups and downs of a season. Locked On Rangers listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com, Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. Now, a little bit of a look at the storylines for this low A team. It is a lot of youngsters, a lot of teenagers. It's kind of an aggressive assignment for Brock Porter, who got absolutely shellacked in his first outing as a professional. Again, don't put too much stock in that. Don't absolutely freak out and think that, oh, well, this guy is going to be absolutely trash. It was a rough outing. He has got a pair of outs, a 13.5 ERA. One of them was a strikeout, and 4 walks in 2/3 of an inning. Not great. Only allowed 1 hit though, so only allowed 1 run. So if you're looking for positives, but did need 32 pitches, which is why he was pulled. Was not able to go a second inning. You throw much more than 30 pitches, especially when you're a teenager in your first pro outing. It's like, all right, yeah, you're done. You're done. He is 19 years old. Will turn 20 on June 3rd. But I'm excited about this kid. He is the reason why I am less critical of the Kumar Rocker pick than I would have been otherwise, saving that. And even without a 2nd or 3rd round pick, the Rangers were able to go and get 2 first-round type talents and sign both of them. That is a big, big deal. But the story, what might end up being the story of the minor leagues, I think Jack Leiter's command and progress there is going to be probably one of the most important storylines, if not the most. I mean, obviously, you have Evan Carter, but I feel like there's not a whole lot of drama with him. It's just like, can he stay healthy? Which he was healthy all last year. He had a back injury the year before, which kind of concerned me. But I feel like one of the biggest storylines in this Rangers system, especially in like the fringes of the top 10, is going to be Anthony Gutierrez and Yeison Morrobel, the 2 outfielders. Both of them are very good and very young and have put up some really impressive stats. Having Anthony Gutierrez at 18 be in full season ball already. He only has 45 games under his plate in 2022, and 23 of those came outside of stateside ball. In the Dominican Summer League, he absolutely crushed it there. A 946 OPS in 91 at-bats, 3 home runs for him as a 17-year-old in the Dominican Summer League. Got promoted to the Arizona Complex League where he held his own. He was okay. 22 games, 81 at-bats, had a 706 OPS. And on base, just a point below 300 and a slugging of 407 there. A guy who plays a decent amount of center field. He'll probably end up being in a corner. It's kind of, these guys have similar profiles. Yeison Morrobel is a little bit older and he is left-handed. I think he will play a little bit more center field. Maybe he is more likely to stick in center than in a corner than Gutierrez, but scouts are really high on both of these guys. That's why I have them at number 12 and 14. Gutierrez is 12. Morrobel is 14. Morrobel is a little bit older and left-handed. Gutierrez is a little bit younger and right-handed. Gutierrez is 6'3", 180 pounds. Morrobel is 6'2", 170 pounds. So both these guys are pretty similar, and they're going to probably be competing for some center field reps. I'll be interested to see which one of them plays more center field, which one of them plays more right. But they also have another interesting guy who is not on the top 30 in JoJo Blackmon, who might be the fastest guy in the entire system. He is just incredibly fast. He was, I believe I had him in my top 30. Yeah, 29 in my top 30. A guy who, again, speed is his whole deal. He is 20 years old, so a little bit older than both of these guys. An 11th round pick in 2021. Had 18 stolen bases in 2022. An on base of 347, an OPS of 831. So a decent amount of power for a guy who is primarily speed first, which is kind of why I included him. I like raw, toolsy guys, and there are a lot of those guys here. Glider Figueroa, Daniel Cueva, Anthony Gutierrez, Yeison Morrobel, like all those guys are basically in what feels like their first, I think it is their first full season of full season ball. They've played a little bit in the Complex League. Each of them I think has played, except for Gutierrez, they've all played at least a little bit in low A. None of them had a tremendous amount of success. Most of them were there for just a week, and it was just to get some more reps there. But still, this is a really, really interesting group. I wish that they had MILB TV there so I could see more of their games. But, most of the other teams in their league will, so you can see quite a few road games. Same thing can be said for the high A affiliate, no MILB TV there. But, again, a lot of the other teams in that Sally League, I think it is still a Sally League that the Hickory Crawdads play in, will have games that you can watch. And I believe now this year is a little bit of a change where MILB TV is included with MLB TV. So you can actually watch those games on your television, not just on your phone in their app that is both helpful and not super duper helpful, which feels like it has a lot of issues all year round. But anyway, we're getting to my 3 wishes, some overall takeaways from this farm system. Again, looking at this farm, even though a lot of the starting pitchers had really rough first games, basically just Jack Leiter and Cole Winn and Brock Porter. But I think the pitching depth in this system is still very strong. We'll see how it plays out. But if if I can have 3 wishes, here are my 3 wishes for this minor league season. Number 1 wish, Jack Leiter can throw his off-speed stuff for strikes. That is the big difference for him. That is what has been his problem. He kept missing everything glove side. The fastball is primo velocity. The spin rate is elite electric. The slider and curveball, both very good pitches, but he was able to land those for strikes at Vanderbilt. And so far in the Texas League, in Double-A, in minor league ball, he has not been able to throw those for strikes. So people have just been able to sit on his fastball and time it up and let it go out of the yard. And it's also caused them some problems with the walks and letting those build up. But I think those are definitely fixable problems. And I think that is, I'm not really worried about this kid. If it persists for another month or 2, then I'm going to have some worries and some concerns maybe about his dad playing too much of an influence. But again, his dad is a 19-year big leaguer who was, I believe, an all-star and threw a no-hitter and won at least 1 World Series, maybe 2. So it's hard to say that guy should not be a big influence and would not be a good influence. But still, I have some concerns a little bit about Jack Leiter. They're not super huge concerns, but if I could use 1 wish, this is my first wish, is that he can start throwing strikes more consistently and stop missing everything freaking glove side. Number 2, Another pitcher, another Double-A pitcher is getting this wish. It is just a healthy Owen White. Owen White has been phenomenal when he has been healthy, but that has been a little bit of a problem for him in his career. The stuff is primo, just as good, if not maybe better at some points than Jack Leiter, and he has been able to throw more consistently in the strike zone and not struggled as badly with the walk problems. He has struggled with the health problems that Jack Leiter has not. So my number 2 wish is keeping Owen White healthy. And the third wish, it's kind of similar, it's kind of cheesy, but Evan Carter being healthy. That is a guy who I'm not really worried about, and I'm really, really excited about. I have been for several years, and he keeps proving me right, and I absolutely love seeing that. And a comp that was thrown out, I believe it was by tepid participation on the Rangers on Deck podcast, comparing him to Grady Sizemore. Not the first time I've heard that, but would definitely be a great comp. For those of you who don't know about Grady Sizemore and his peak, it was absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully he doesn't have the same injury problems that Sizemore had that kind of ruined his career. I mean, after his third All-Star season, he was never really the same. He only played 100-plus games twice after his age 25 season. He was a 3-time All-Star, played 162 games in 2006, 2007 as well. Finished top 12 in MVP voting both those years. A 2-time Gold Glove winner, a 1-time Silver Slugger winner. 4 different years where he got MVP votes, and in 3 of those years he finished in the top 12, 10, 12, and 11. Those years were absolutely phenomenal. He was a guy who had an on-base in the high 370s at his peak, was hitting 290 one year, 277, 267, OPSs all above 850, 30 steals, 20-plus homers. That's the kind of guy playing elite center field defense. I mean, one year he had 11 triples, which I think is something that Evan Carter could do. Actually, 11 triples 2 different years, and a season with 33 home runs. That was when he finished in 10th in MVP voting and an 876 OPS. A guy with a high on base, a lefty, plays legitimate center field. And Evan Carter did have back problems that kind of interrupted his first full pro season. But last year was completely healthy, was absolutely dominant at every level he played at. And so if I can just have a third wish, my only wish for a position player is Evan Carter being healthy. There are some other wishes that maybe I could do, but those are my big ones. Maybe I'd save one for Kumar Rocker or Brock Porter, figuring stuff out, but I'm not really super worried about those guys. I think they'll be okay. But again, a lot of my concerns and focus will be on Double-A this year, but that low A team with those really interesting young guys that are all making their full season debuts, going to be really interested to see where those guys end up in my midseason ranking, because Yeison Morrobel and Anthony Gutierrez, both of those guys could really skyrocket up the charts because they have immense potential. And I am super excited for this minor league season. But that is going to do it for today's show, for this week's shows. I'll be back on Monday talking about this weekend series against the Cubs. One game will have already been completed by the time this comes out, but that's okay. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy minor league baseball.